everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Vogiatzakis Show for Mayor. Well, I'm Brad Wilder, back tonight discussing something that, affects every homeowner out there in Winnipeg, every resident, every contractor, every developer, as well as every business owner. Now, things such as permits, bylaws, enforcement, all important. But at the same time, some people may hear that and think, this topic isn't exciting, it's boring. But if you've ever opened a business, renovated a property, installed a sign, built a garage, applied for a permit, or dealt with a city hall, well, you know exactly why this matters. You see, tonight, Mike is unveiling his plan to review and modernize permits and bylaw enforcement. Now, this goal is simple. Make the rules fair, make the rules clear, and focus on what matters most. That means safe neighborhoods, strong communities, and a city hall that works with people instead of against them. We'll be right back after this commercial break with more from the Mike Vogiatzakis Show.
At ASAP Auto Glass Winnipeg, we know you need it repaired fast. That's why we do all the work. From contacting AutoPack and starting your claim to replacing that broken windshield, we make sure your visit is carefree with quality service you know and love. From automotive to industrial, we replace and repair. From cars, trucks, and SUVs to industrial glass, we get the job done right the first time. At asapautoglass.com, our website has all the answers you're looking for when repairing or replacing your automotive glass. Winnipeg Auto Glass Repair is ASAP Auto Glass. Experts and fast. Book your appointment today.
Well, welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us, you haven't missed a thing yet. Mike, welcome back. Good to have you here tonight. I know you're a busy man every single day. You're kind of like that guy that works all hours, aren't you?
I am. Just a little bit of everywhere these days. It's kind of crazy.
Absolutely.
But I'm enjoying it, Brad. Welcome back to the show all the way from Alberta. Good evening to everyone who's watching tonight. Tonight we're talking about an important topic. It's about people, it's about permits, bylaws, and enforcement. And that's what today's topic is going to be. But before we do that, of course, we want to say hi to some people. Right, Brad?
Yeah, we got you all dialed up there finally in your studio, and everything's working well now, so you're able to see all the comments as well. Who came on first tonight, Mike?
Well, I could tell you that, our number one guy with a lot of beers came on first tonight. It's Gord. Gord, welcome to the show. Steve Bage, did I tell you that I ran into Steve and his wife in Gimli a little while ago? I was walking around and I hear, "Hey, Mike."
Is her name Jennifer? I'm just kidding, wife. Steve. I'm just kidding. Her name's Kelly.
Steve and his beautiful wife, Kelly, and we talked for a bit. They invited me to sit down and have a drink, but I was out for the ride for Dad. So
did they tell you a joke? They love to play jokes. They do so many videos online, and they're so hilarious to watch. I get a laugh every time. And she's such a good
Al
sport.
Bueller's on the show, and Al's been one of the originals along with Steve Bage and Heather, and of course Sandy. There's quite a few people on there. Heather Toes, Debbie, one of my favorite people, Al Bueller again, and Lulu. She hasn't been on the show for a long time. I'll let you do some, Brad. Michael Newman.
Mike Newman
Let's
is here
go.
from Toulon. Let's go. I like Mike. Woohoo!
You know what? I gotta tell you something. Michael Newman went out of his way. He's at a care home, and basically he went to all the residents, and he's got a video. We got to play it with every one of them saying, "I like Mike."
Well, that's great. That's great. That's an awesome video to have. Jim Dickinson is here, as well as Randolph Zora. Lulu's chiming in now and saying, "Rock on, everyone. Good evening, Mike and Brad. They are hilarious, that's for sure." I'm not sure if that's you or if that's me. I don't think I'm very funny. not often enough, anyway. And I don't know, Lulu, why haven't you seen any notifications? We're not sure exactly. We've been looking into it, but we haven't got any real answers for you just yet. So, Mike, the reality is most residents don't think about these kinds of things at city until they have to deal with City Hall, really. They suddenly discover how difficult the process can be. There's lots of confusing things, from complicated answers to confusing rules, delays, red tape, things like that. So I guess the question is, there's probably a way to look at this all, isn't there? So what do you see under this enforcement and these, I guess, probably the 6 pillars that'll guide how permits and bylaw enforcement operate under a Vogiatzakis administration? What does that look like?
It basically means that when our website comes out, you're going to see, and that's going to be this week sometime, there's a 6-pillar plan to deal with permits and enforcement. And it's all detailed. That I sent you a picture of it today. I don't know if you're going to put it up on the screen, but that is for bylaw enforcement and for dealing with, the guys who go out and harass every single one of them. It means residents and business should know exactly what to expect of them. The rules should be understandable, the process should be understandable, and the answers should be consistent. Right now, I hear too many stories where people call one department, get one answer, they call another department and get another answer altogether. That creates frustration, of course, and it creates delays, and
Sure
it
does.
creates unnecessary expense. Government should make compliance easier, not harder. Do you know what I mean, Brad? And it
Absolutely,
seems
I
to
do.
be
You know
harder
what?
every time you want to get a permit.
So if we start with pillar number 1, Mike, clear and consistent rules, what does that mean?
So basically, what we're talking about here is rules haven't been kept up to date since way back. Technology changes, businesses change, neighborhoods change, yet sometimes City Hall continues operating the same way as it did 20 years ago. And that's why we're proposing a complete review of permits and bylaw processes.
Well, that's exactly what's needed, obviously, and we've got some challenges ahead, or you have some challenges ahead. The rules should obviously be understandable. That's one of the biggest things, right, Mike?
Correct? Yeah, that's
Now,
exactly how it should be.
Do you think some of the rules are really outdated, or just not keeping up with the times? Which one is it? Because
I think
there's
they haven't kept up with
progress,
the
and then
times.
there's just kind of living in the moment.
Yeah, when you deal with, like, I've dealt with bylaw enforcement, I've dealt with permits, and it's not easy. It's a big circle, and by the time you finish that circle, you're all confused, and when you get to the other end, it even becomes more complicated just to get your permit. So I think people in Winnipeg have had enough. They want Winnipeg to grow, but yet they hold you back and stop growth, and especially for small businesses. They're constantly attacking businesses, and we're going to get into that, later on in the show, but it's the commitment, and simply update
What is
permits,
the
bylaws.
commitment then? What do you mean by that? A commitment in what way?
I think we simply need to update. Permits and bylaws, so they're easy to understand and easy to apply for and fairly. And I think that's what needs to happen with permits. We need to make it a simpler process where a family that's fixing their home or a business that's putting a business together can walk in, understand what they need to do, and not make it complicated. Cut out the red tape, cut out the middle people, get right to the point and get it done. When these inspectors come out, they make it impossible for you to open up your business. And in Winnipeg, a lot of businesses go broke before they even get started because of the bylaw permit regulations.
So it's one thing to have permits and rules and regulations, but it's all about enforcement. You had a couple of enforcement officers at your door over your lifetime already, and you kind of know what that path is like. So why is fair and equitable enforcement important? Like, do you feel as though you received fair and equitable enforcement, or you didn't, and you're going to change that?
I think it's because trust matters, Brad. Residents need confidence. They need rules that apply equally to everyone. Business needs to feel confidence. Developers need to feel the confidence. And the problem is enforcement. The problem is it's inconsistent. Enforcement is very inconsistent. Rules should not change based on who shows up. Rules should not depend on who you are, and rules should definitely should be applied fairly to all residents consistently. And that's not what's happening, and it's driving some residents absolutely crazy.
Well, it's one thing to say, hey, slap on the wrist, you did something wrong with a minimal fine, and then there's something obviously you could say is larger enforcement with $1,000 fine attached to it. You've often said enforcement should work with the people, not against the people. So, look, you take one fine from the city, whether it's at your property or your business or whatever, you kind of learn a lesson from that, don't you? But does it have to be as harsh as what it is now, Mike? Should enforcement work with the people instead of working against them? And is that something you can try to make amends?
I think most people want to comply. The first question should be, how do we help you? How do we help solve the problem? Not how do we punish this person? I believe in education first, communication first, problem solving first, and enforcement when necessary. And that's exactly what's not happening.
And obviously punishing a person is something that, can happen. And it is a form of punishment. But at the same time, you've personally dealt with enforcement, Mike. Did you feel like you were punished? And tell us about the camera issue, because I think that's probably a good place to start, is your camera story, isn't it? Can you hear me? Hello, Mike.
You keep cutting in and out, so I don't know if the people are seeing that, but I hear you sometimes.
I'm not
let's
sure.
Let's talk about the
nobody's saying anything online that I can see.
Let's talk about the camera story here for a minute.
Yeah.
Everyone hear us online? Is everything going smoothly? The comments aren't moving, so I'm not too sure what's going on. But we should check that before we go further. And no, Brad's gone.
Oh, I'm here. I'm still here. Says we're still streaming.
So it seems I don't see any more comments. Are we still streaming? Okay. So
we hear everything Heather says.
The camera story, and
we can hear you. We're hearing you. We can see you.
There's more comments coming on, so that's good.
Sometimes you have to refresh your menu there, Mike.
Yeah, everything seems to be good on my end, Brad. But anyways, I want to talk about what happened with me.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of enforcement officers come to the funeral home on Kirkfield, and they came because somebody complained about one of our lights. We basically changed the light bulb, put a new light bulb in. It was too bright, and basically what had happened is they came in to talk to me about it because I refused to pay the ticket. So when they came in there, it became more of a shouting match. It became more of an argument, and it became more of intimidation by the enforcement officers, especially the supervisor that came in. Pretty big guy, and he was trying to intimidate me, trying to push his weight around. And I simply said to him, listen, above your head is a camera. Everything you're saying is being recorded, and I won't hesitate to play it back to people. When I told him we had a camera, he decided this conversation is over. Him and the other bylaw officer got up and they walked out of the funeral home and said nothing else. And then 3 days later, I received a ticket for not having a permit in place to have cameras installed. So really odd, but that's what you call corruption. Corruption at City Hall when they come after you for one thing and then they realize they screwed up because they said things they should have said on camera, and all of a sudden they realized, oh, we need to attack this guy, and that's exactly what they did. They attacked me with a $1,000 ticket for not having a permit to have a camera up. And I can tell you that a majority of the businesses in Winnipeg do not have permits for their cameras. A camera is there to protect your business, to protect your employees, to protect the vehicles, and in funeral service, to protect the people coming in and out of the funeral home. So it's terrible that they make you do that. On the other hand, if you have residential property, guess what? You don't need a permit. So how does that make sense where you need a permit for residential, for commercial, but you don't for residential?
What lesson do you think City Hall learns from your experience? Did they learn anything from dealing with you?
I think what they learned was to not answer emails, not answer texts, and not call the individual back. And that's exactly what happened when I was dealing with this. And I must have wrote like 30 or maybe even 40 letters and numerous phone calls to Scott Gillingham and to City Hall, and absolutely no answer, no return, of emails, no return of phone calls. And it seems like that's how City Hall works. And it shows that that's corruption, and they're covering up something. And that's exactly what they did there.
So this sign issue, do you want to talk about the sign issue too now? Still got me?
Oh, Brad seems to be frozen.
No, I'm
And people
not.
can see us, and we're talking. And
Still working on my end, buddy.
no, you're good. So
I'm
the
back.
other thing really that we needed to talk about was, they came in and they gave me a ticket also for. So we bought a place called Kirkfield United Church, and it was actually a running church, and there was a sign there since 1969. The original sign that was there when we bought the property. We simply changed the faceplate of the sign, so that's just the name plate in front of the sign. We actually used the same plastic, and we changed it from Kirkfield United Church to Voyage Funeral Home and Crematorium. Shortly thereafter, came another $1,000 ticket for not having a permit to change the nameplate of a sign. So I thought that was crazy, ridiculous, and that was fine number 2. Fine number 3 came when we had a ramp put up, and this was to bring caskets in and out of the building, so we wouldn't struggle carrying caskets or trying to use an elevator that was too small. So we put a casket ramp in, and then we got another fine for having a casket ramp in without a permit. But what you need to know is, when you open up a business, you go through this process where inspectors come in, they inspect everything, they make sure everything is working properly, and then they give you your occupancy permit so you can operate. And that means you're good to go. You've passed all inspections. And what they did with me is, 3 years later, they came back and start giving me all these fines. So that's after the occupancy permit. And that's bullying. And not only that, picking on small businesses where they should be supporting small businesses.
All right, Mike. So those are 2 great stories, and it really shows what City Hall has, done in terms of enforcement, in terms of even, dollars and cents. I mean, this is a way for them to make money, just no different than a photo radar parked on the side of the street when there's no construction in the zone, right? Like, same sort of scenario. So what's the commitment now under pillar number 2, Mike? Pillar number 2 has a lot to offer too in terms of making things happen. And that, obviously, we're going to talk about rules and enforced consistently across the city, but what else?
So let's focus on what enforcement actually should be. The issue that affects the quality of life, unsafe properties, illegal dumping, abandoned buildings, dangerous structures, problem properties, public safety concerns. These are real incidents that should be dealt with. These are things residents talk to me about every single day. People want clean neighborhoods, and you don't blame them. People want safe neighborhoods they can be proud of. And we're not getting this. We're getting them coming after small businesses. We're getting them coming after, residents and giving them fines and telling them that they have to defend themselves in court if they don't like what they're being written. Recently in Winnipeg, there was a guy who didn't cut the grass on his boulevard, and he got a fine for not doing that. And whatever happened to the city of Winnipeg cutting your boulevard grass for you, which you figure they would do with the amount of taxes you pay?
I heard they wanted a permit just to change the breaker out in your breaker box in Winnipeg. Just a simple breaker
So
down
on
in
my
your
end, Brad,
electrical
I'm getting
panel.
something that says your network is unstable. So these are the kinds of things that are happening, and inspectors should be working for the people, not against the people. And it's frustrating for people. So, towards the thing that actually impacts daily life, not towards creating unnecessary paperwork, and not towards chasing easy targets like small businesses and residents who can't afford to pay their tickets. We should focus on issues that really affect the residents.
So what's the commitment
And,
then, Mike? Tell us the commitment.
What's our commitment? Stronger, safer neighborhoods focused on issues that impact quality of life, property standards, safety, and public well-being. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to do to help Winnipeg become a better city, a city that is going to work with the people. And we keep saying this. That's why I want to be the voice of the people. And this is one part that really needs to be changed. Enforcement and permits It's holding back the city, and in many cases, causing a lineup at the courts because people are lined up to fight these tickets.
That's right. So pillar number 4 is about better service when they're lined up at the courthouse, for example. Even accountability. I mean, that's a big part of this. I think your accountability is going to be there, but we've seen a lack of accountability along the way, haven't we, Mike?
We have. I mean, I hear the frustration. People can't get answers. People don't get callbacks. People don't know where their applications stand because they can't get a hold of anybody. People don't know who's responsible. That should never happen, Brad. And the thing is, how do we fix this? Accountability. We need service standards. We need transparency. If someone applies for a permit, they should know where they stand. If someone files a complaint, they should receive updates right away. City Hall should communicate.
Do you believe that technology is going to be able to help, Mike? Is that part of the plan?
Absolutely. Permit tracking, online updates, clear communication, direct contacts. Residents deserve answers, and that's the bottom line, Brad.
So what's the commitment then?
Improve communication. There should be a number where you could call every department on its own without going through 311 and waiting for a call back in 3 or 4 days, maybe a week. Response times and transparency. Residents and businesses, we need to create a direct line to each department. That's the bottom line, and I think that's going to make things easier. So if you want to get a hold of Tom at enforcement, you can get a hold of Tom at enforcement, not go through 311 and or other process that puts you on hold forever just to have a question answered.
So pillar 5 is all about support, growth, and doing things the right way, Mike. And I know that a lot of people criticize the city for a lot of different issues along the way. But that support and growth only come from doing it the right way. So lack of doing it the right way turns into nothing but, well, what you have already. So how do you change that? What's going to happen going forward, and how does the permit reform help economic growth?
I think business needs certainty. Developers need certainty, and investors need certainty. And when they don't have that, they don't invest in Winnipeg, and they go elsewhere. And Winnipeg has lost a lot of major projects because there is no certainty. The developers are concerned about the process, and if permits take too long, projects get delayed. When projects get delayed, it costs money to the developers. If approvals are unpredictable, investments go elsewhere, and that's exactly what's happening. Investments have been going out elsewhere, and we want investments to be right here in Winnipeg. We want Winnipeg to grow. We want our young people to have jobs and a future in the city. And if we don't get this fixed, we're going to be a problem. The city should be engaging, encouraging responsible growth, not discouraging it. That's what's happening. Instead of encouraging responsible growth, they're doing completely the opposite. They're discouraging it. People get frustrated. And I've had friends who've tried to open up businesses, and one just recently who was renting from a friend of mine, and a year later they still hadn't had a permit, and at the end of that year couldn't pay their rent and never ended up opening up their business. And that's just wrong for people that want to be in Winnipeg, that want to support Winnipeg's future, and then end up losing, and not only losing the chance to operate a business, but losing the funds and the money that and the investors who were going to help them through their business.
I don't think any business really looks at their landlord like the landlord wants to, not have this happen. They're all on board and in favor. They've got a new tenant. The landlord's happy. The tenant's excited about their new business. And then in walks the city, eh, Mike? In walks the city. So you speak to a lot of business owners constantly. You hear their troubles. You hear their woes. What are they telling you, Mike?
They're telling me that they're frustrated.
Yeah.
Every day costs them money. Every day costs them money. Every unnecessary requirement costs money. Every month waiting for approvals costs money. And the city should be a partner in growth, not an obstacle. And, I've run into it myself. And if I didn't have the resources to stay in business, a funeral home that they've attacked nonstop, everything from cameras to signs to lights to ramps. And the funny thing is, when you try and fight a ticket, you got to go to parking enforcement, believe it or not. And it's such a joke. And the city of Winnipeg needs to be accountable to the people of Winnipeg. Winnipeg needs a voice. They need a mayor who's going to care, a mayor who has business experience, business knowledge, and has dealt with these obstacles that the city puts before you. I mean, I've had business friends of mine who run businesses who've had enough with Winnipeg, have had enough with the business tax, had enough of permits, nonstop obstacles and delays, and on top of it all, the enforcement from the bylaw enforcement officers who keep harassing you day after day after day, and that goes for people that are residential properties. And I just read one just before I got on air here, where a lady, the neighbor had a mess in his yard, and they called bylaw enforcement and said, "Look, our neighborhood looks terrible. This person's got junk piled up in their yard." And to their surprise, the bylaw officer knocked on their door, asked for her driver's license, and gave her a ticket for the weeds that were out of control. And she said, "These aren't weeds. These are flowers. I planted flowers." So she got a ticket for $1,000, she was saying. And anyways, by the time she went through the court process, they ended up dropping it, but she had to pay a $250 administration fee. Everything is about a tax grab with Scott Gillingham and his council, and it needs to come to a stop. I think the residents of Winnipeg have had enough, and what you're going to get with me is you're going to get the real deal. Not only am I a business guy, but I'm a common sense kind of a guy, and you want to make people's lives easier. There's been times where I've phoned 311, and you feel like you're going to have a heart attack calling 311 because they put you on hold, and then they say, "We're going to get you to the right department." Then they come back and say, "We need your number," and somebody will call you back. It's almost like calling 911 and getting an answering machine. When you need 911 the most, you get an answering machine. And how frustrating is that when somebody's having a stroke and every minute counts, every second counts, but you get an answering machine. And it's things like that we need to stop. We need to create a predictable, efficient process that supports responsible development and investment. And that's the bottom line. And if we don't have that, Winnipeg is going to continue to be in a lot of trouble.
You were talking about that lady, and she got the $1,000 fine, and she was growing some flowers in her front yard and around her house, according to her. I don't want to be throwing a pun, but the city should be a partner in growth, not a partner, or not a partner at all. You should be helping people, but unfortunately, they're not willing to grow with society, are they? They've got their own set of straight ahead thinking. Obstacles, I call them, right?
Yeah, and we need to remove those obstacles. And anyone who's dealt with permits, Brad, anyone who's
so
dealt
what do you
with
think? What do you think the commitment is on this part, Mike?
The commitment on.
Well, the commitment on the city and their approvals and waiting for approvals and cost of money, and there's a commitment, create like maybe a predictable, efficient process. Is that part of it?
I think basically we need to cut the red tape. The red tape, everything that means nothing in between needs to be cut out. We need to speed up the process. We need to stop the terrible enforcement. We need to stop the fines. If you're going to send an enforcement officer out, send an enforcement officer out to say, "Look, you have 30 days or whatever to fix this problem. How can we work with you to get your project moving? What can we do to make this easier for you?" Get feedback from the people on how we could keep citizens here, how we could keep, buildings looking beautiful, how we could keep the city looking futuristic. And of course, that's not happening because people are frustrated, so they just give up. And if you look at our city, instead of patting you in the back saying, "Hey, you've done a great job on your building, on your house, it looks really nice," basically we need to stop the bureaucracy. That's exactly what we need to do. So when your building looks nice, when your property looks nice, they lift up your taxes. You pay more taxes, and you get penalized for what? For making a property look better. Look, Winnipeg's falling apart from the core, and the core is downtown Winnipeg, where the University of Winnipeg is. That whole area between Sargent and Ellis and Maryland and all the way down. We need to redevelop, and we need to start from the core of the city and move out. what's happening with Scott Gillingham and the current administration is they're doing the opposite. They're moving further and further out, and they're forgetting about the downtown core, and they're forgetting about where Winnipeg first started. And we need to make beautiful. We need to make Winnipeg look beautiful again, and we need to start from the core and work our way out. And every neighborhood, everyone deserves a safe and fair neighborhood where your kids can go play, where they have a safe school to go to, where there's playgrounds, where there's pools like when we were young, and they've taken that all away. And you look at the youth in the city and how they're struggling and they're stuck playing video games. And the problem is the endless spending of nonsense, Brad. Going to get advice from other places in the world on how we should make Winnipeg better again. Ask the citizens of Winnipeg, the people that live here, the people who were born and raised here. They know what Winnipeg needs to become the Winnipeg we love.
Absolutely. They're going to be a big part of your performance going forward, aren't they, Mike?
Correct, they are. And, I'm going to be a mayor who's going to listen to the people, talk to the people, and find out what their needs are, and then we're going to fix it. And if you have somebody who cares in the mayor chair, it's going to make a huge difference. Somebody who's not politically connected, for one, somebody who's not going to put up with garbage or nonsense, and somebody who's going to fight the system, not work with a broken system.
So pillar number 6 in this whole strategy is focus on what matters most. So there's lots of things to focus on, but this may be your most important pillar. It focuses on what matters most. And what does that mean to you, Mike?
I think it means focusing on resources on the issue that residents actually care about, like unsafe properties, focus on illegal dumping, focus on problem buildings, and there's lots of them. Neighborhood deterioration. So when neighborhoods are falling apart, we need to get in there, and that's where the enforcement officers should be. That's where people feel unsafe. Community safety is really important. When our kids play in neighborhoods, when our families walk in neighborhoods, and when you have houses that are derelict, for example, and they create danger because people go use those houses for illegal activity. That's what we should be enforcing. The city of Winnipeg has so many resources. We need to focus on those resources where they make the biggest difference. And that's where we're not focusing. We're focusing on going after the people that are helping to build the city. We're focusing on residents that are trying to make a difference. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, we're focusing on what's good and how to make it bad.
One of the things that I've noticed about you, Mike, is that you've said before that City Hall targets easy problems instead of important problems. Do you want to explain that?
Residents see serious issues in their communities every day. Meanwhile, they watch for enforcement resources being directed elsewhere. And that's what I'm trying to say. People want priorities, Brad. That's the bottom line. People want common sense. People want results. And we're not getting any of that. And that's why you see the core of Winnipeg. You see so many places for lease. You see windows smashed. You see derelict buildings. You see a downtown that's dirty. You see city streets that are not taken care of. And yet we're spending our resources in the wrong direction. And I think that's frustrating. And people have had enough.
So how do you see that going now? You want to make sure that happens. So how are you going to make that happen, Mike?
By constantly asking one question, Brad.
What's that?
Does this improve the quality of life in Winnipeg and for its residents? And if yes, it should be a priority. And that's the question we should be asking when we're trying to grow Winnipeg. Ask Winnipeggers what they think and what's a priority in their neighborhoods and what would they like to see fixed. I think what's happened, Brad, is total communication with the voters and the residents of the city has fallen apart. There is no more communication between City Hall and the citizens. City Hall is on its own path to destruction, and it seems like the citizens are on that ride to destruction. You even look at transit, and you look at potholes, and you look at the important things of the city. What moves the city? And it's not moving the city. And, it's June, almost the end of June, and we're still hitting potholes in the city of Winnipeg. And you kind of wonder, where's your priority? How come this isn't fixed? I talked to Ken Lee today, one of the guys who's on my team, and he just put brand new summer tires on his car, and he was out for an hour, and he hit a pothole and blew out one of his tires, brand new tires. That's what I'm talking about. The commitment is in the wrong direction, and the citizens are suffering and paying the price for it.
So what's the commitment then, Mike? Obviously shifting some stuff around, making priorities happen. What do you got in mind?
I think shift resources to priority concerns and ensure compliance that keeps communities thriving. And that's the biggest concern that I have is why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we shifting resources to keep, the communities moving and the communities thriving and people wanting to walk outside at night, making people feel safe, doing everything it takes to keep our city moving, keep our city alive, and bringing back the hope we once had for Winnipeg.
Yeah, and again, they're doing some strange things out in British Columbia right now, where they're trying to basically take away the nightlife in certain parts of Vancouver and other cities throughout the country. If elected mayor, what happens first, Mike? What's your first priority?
I think in my first 100 days in office, I will take the permits and the enforcements and bylaw and definitely change it and make it easier for people to work with. I think it's really important. A complete review of the permit process is going to take place in the first 100 days. A complete review of bylaw enforcement practices, and I just can't wait. This is something that I'm gonna go at hardcore because I've lived it and I've faced it and I've heard it from other residents. And, since I announced that I'm running for mayor, my phones won't stop ringing. I think I'm at, let me tell you here, to be exact, and not kidding here. So I'm at 3,978 messages from the day that I said that I was going to run for mayor. So people are talking to me and I'm talking to people and I'm making a lot of phone calls and I'm visiting a lot of businesses. And next week I'm going to go visit a business in Winnipeg who's been attacked by bylaw enforcement every single day for almost a month. And they can't afford the fines. We need to meet with business owners. We need to meet with developers. We need to meet with frontline staff and clear a path to simply modernize and improve the system that's going to work for the citizens and make it easy to get our city clean, to make it more modern. We need to look at drainage problems, sewage problems that we have that, not one apology came from City Hall this week when sewers all across basements, all across Winnipeg flooded. And not a single apology from City Hall. There's lots going on, and it's come to the point where citizens are so frustrated that they don't know what direction to move in. Look, we want our city back, and that's the bottom line. Everyone wants the Winnipeg we once lived in and we loved and we cared about. We're seeing more and more people move out of the city. We're seeing more and more people leave Winnipeg. We're seeing our younger generation move on and go to other cities that are more modern. The technology is up to date, that the cities work for those people. And under Scott Gillingham's plan and the current council, it's going in the other direction. And it's frustrating residents. And, to have bylaw enforcement officers attacking you constantly, giving you fines. I mean, the fines are outrageous that people are getting. And, if we talked about it and asked people to just leave their story on our feed, you'd be amazed at what people have to say and how frustrated they are. And think about it, Brad. Let's just say you wanted to open up a studio in Winnipeg, and it's nonstop. Bylaw enforcement needs to check this. Bylaw enforcement needs to do that. Look, I'm all for enforcement that's done properly. We just can't run around like the wild, wild west and do what we want. I understand that. But when there's people wanting to work with the city should work back with those people.
Yeah, that's well said, Mike. I agree. And, there's lots of people saying some great comments and asking some questions online tonight. I think we've got a few minutes here to maybe take a look at some of those as we start to get close to wrapping up tonight's episode. Is now a good time to do that?
In this what you're going to see is the next little while is you're going to see a complete review of these bylaw enforcement practices. And I want to meet with a lot of these businesses and find out what these bylaw officers are doing, how they're being bullied, how they're enforcing things that they shouldn't be enforcing. And I think some residents sometimes don't know what other direction to turn into. So you need a mayor where you have a direct line to this mayor, whether it's his email address, whether it's a phone number to City Hall. You need to be able to talk with the mayor and tell the mayor your problems, your issues, and that's the only way we're going to fix the city. We need to make the city safer. The city is completely out of control. people that have worked so hard, like your parents, Brad, and my mom, can't even walk in their neighborhoods at night. Why? Because the city is so unsafe and so dangerous, and we need to change that. And I can tell you right now, there's nobody, and I'm talking nobody, more motivated to change the crime in the city than Mike Vogiatzakis. You know, once your brother or a family member is murdered in the city, it motivates you to a whole new level where you want to see change, you care to see change, you want to see a better Winnipeg, and you don't want this to happen to any other person or any other person's son, brother, sister who's living in the city. And that's what you need, somebody who's strong-headed, who's got the willpower, who's been through it before, and is finally saying, okay, time to make change. I want to also talk to you about July 14th. You're not going to be here, unfortunately, for that, but July 14th, we're going to have our first meet and greets. And we're going to make more announcements about it, but our signs are going to be here. So you'll finally be able to get lawn signs and signs on some businesses, signs on some major corners. And a lot of people say, how can we support Mike Vogiatzakis for mayor? What could we do? The one thing you could do is you need to share everything that I'm doing. Share it 1 million times over, because let's just say I have 14,000 followers. Well, and we need another 30,000 followers to win this race. Winnipeg is at 850,000 people, and a lot of people don't know who Mike Vogiatzakis is. As great as my intentions are, as good as I want to make change, as motivated as I am, people need to know about you in order for you to win the election. So it's important that we get the message out, share shows like this, follow the show, follow Mike Vogiatzakis, leave your messages, tell me what's wrong, tell me how we can fix it. That's how we make change.
I agree, Mike. That is how we make change. And tonight, the mayor announced that he wants to have an emergency meeting to address the homeless and the drug medical crisis downtown. It must be election year, eh, buddy? Susan Hall says, too little, too late.
The funny thing is, Brad, nobody saw this mayor for, 3 years. As a matter of fact, you could have been standing beside him at a bus stop, or not a bus stop, because probably doesn't take the bus. But anyways, you could have probably been standing beside him in a shopping center and not have a clue who Scott Gillingham was. And you notice election year comes, and all of a sudden rolls out the red carpet. Oh, look what I'm doing for the city. Look who I am, Scott Gillingham. All of a sudden he's at all these events. And, people take note of stuff like that. Winnipeggers aren't stupid. They understand what he's doing. And if he wants a solution to homelessness, drugs, addiction, mental health, just listen to my platform, because I'm going to tell you and I'm going to give you that solution. So Scott Gillingham, maybe just watch the show and we get to the point where we talk about homelessness, how we clean it up, mental health, addiction. I will show you how to do it. And trust me, my way is going to work.
You've got some great stuff there. There's no question about that. And people are going to be excited when they hear what that looks like. There's a lot of challenges along the road, Mike, and we all know that. We know that things aren't just going to magically happen. There's going to be debates along the way. Some of the folks online tonight have been making the comment, hey, get Gillingham together. Let's go. Time for a debate. I think you'll kick his you-know-what. Donkey?
Oh, maybe we'll just drive around one of those traffic circles that he's made, or those
calming curbs.
There's curbs that they got all over the city.
Yep,
like some of the things that have happened. People talk about Portage and Main still, and it's really frustrating because we've spent $75 million of your dollars on Portage, Main, and they said it was because they needed, the concourse at the bottom was falling apart, and the businesses were complaining, and they had to open up Portage and Main because they had to close the concourse at the bottom. But guess what? Another big lie, because the concourse is still open, businesses are still operating, and the upstairs at Portage and Main is now open. And the amount of money we've spent on that project alone, between consulting fees and construction, is crazy, considering we have many Winnipeggers struggling, many neighborhoods falling apart, and much work that needs to be done.
Absolutely. Tons and tons of stuff that are going to make this city better. No question about that. And
some people say, why would you want to take on a mess like this? And, the other day I was driving down Main Street and, looking at people that are stuck in zombie positions and just Winnipeg being the dirtiest I've ever seen it. Cups and drinks and garbage everywhere. And you kind of wonder, how did the city get in this state? And how do we fix it? And it's going to take somebody with a lot of motivation, somebody with a lot of heart, and somebody who really cares and loves Winnipeg to change what we have going on our streets right now.
Well, Mike, we've reached that time of the night tonight. We're getting close, and I know you've got some final thoughts that you want to get to tonight.
We still have 10 minutes, Brad. We've got lots of time.
10 minutes, yeah.
Why don't we go to some of the comments? People always say, hey,
well, that's
how
what
come
we
you
were
don't go to
doing.
the comments?
We just did that.
You were? Oh, I see. Mike says you can't solve any problems, easy or hard. The corruption is completely out of control. And I just talked to you about it today with enforcement. And, you know, when you stand up to the system, and that's what I did when this enforcement officer came in and tried to bully me and tried to use intimidation. And I simply just looked up and said, you know, everything you're saying is being recorded. And that was the end of that. Boom, stamp of a finger. They walked out. They said this meeting is over. That just shows that there's corruption. And, you know, 3 days later to receive, $1,000 fine in the mail for installing a camera without permits. The City of Winnipeg Police come to our businesses, to each one of the Voyage funeral homes at least once a week, and go through our cameras to try and solve crimes. Well, we don't charge them to do that. We do it because it's a courtesy. We want a safer Winnipeg for everyone.
Absolutely. So I've been scrolling through here. There are tons of stuff. Not necessarily questions. People talking about traffic circles, drugs, homelessness, corruption.
Let's talk about the safe consumption site. So I was
that is a good one. And there's Christine White has a comment. She says no drug consumption site. That would be like dropping a bomb on whatever neighborhood that would be in. And you know what neighborhood it's going into, don't you, Mike?
Yeah, it's going into the neighborhood where it should not be going into, the neighborhood that's the most problem neighborhood in the city of Winnipeg. And so Wob Canoe has approved that safe consumption site, Brad, even though, as you know, and you can tell people, right across Canada, they've shut down safe consumption sites. Why don't you talk about that?
Well, what I can tell you about the safe consumption site is this. I spent time in Lethbridge, Alberta, and I happen to know for a fact that that safe consumption site wasn't just being abused and abusing people. The one running the show was actually abusing the system and pilfering money and doing things with that money that most people would, need to go to church for a long time. But she took the money and went to church in a foreign country and decided to go on a tour of the religious sites around the world with that $4 million that she took from the safe consumption site in Alberta. There were a lot of things that went on there. We had, at the time, set up cameras out back of the safe consumption site, so we were able to gather a lot of the material that we still have and we're making a documentary on. And that material and footage really does show and explain what your neighborhood turns into when a safe consumption site opens up. Now, that being said, not only does it show what the neighborhood looks like, it shows really what the site looks like, because behind, in the alley, all kinds of things are going on, from drug deals to sex to extortion to intimidation, bullying, harassment, abuse, both sexual and physical. There are so many things that transpire when an organization like that sets up shop in your city. It was closed down quite a few years ago now, and there's a group of us that were responsible and proud to say that we did our due diligence to make sure that the truth got out. And there's some very commendable people in town, business owners who stood up for their ground, because their ground was being affected most, meaning their front doorsteps were being desiccated or defecated on. There were things that, broken windows, robberies, just vandalism in general, whether they spray painted something on the back door or the back of that business. It was just a nightmare for the residents of southern Alberta. And what I also noticed was that there was an influx There's a park right out behind City Hall. It's a soccer field, a football field, a track. It's got all the amenities, and there's even a hockey rink right there too, and a curling club. Now, that whole field, and I'm talking about the entire football field, soccer field, was full of tents. It turned into a tent city. It turned into a tent city because the safe consumption site was allowed to open in southern Alberta. Now that weighed big time on the citizens, and it also created a lot of crime, a lot of chaos, a lot of things that weren't in and part of that city prior to the safe consumption site opening. Those individuals, I got to be honest, they sat around and they hung out there for a very long time while that site was opened. And they controlled the city during that time. They ran the city. They were doing drugs in the park, in the schoolyards, at the playgrounds. All of this was happening. Kids were getting stuck with needles in that city. And it was a sad situation. We knew we had to do something to make that, I guess, better. And when we did, we took the children first. I mean, the children are the ones who we're ultimately trying to protect most. But business owners were right there to support all of it, and they chipped in and they did the right thing by standing together to unite. It's not racist to say you don't want a drug consumption site in your neighborhood or on your block or anywhere near your establishment at all, whether it's your house, your school, or your home, or your business. All of those matter, more so than the safe consumption site. You think you think you're saving somebody by allowing it to happen, and it's not really the case. It's never the case. Narcan is what's saving people, and nurses are who are injecting the Narcan, obviously. So, look, at the end of the day, they're getting some medical care, but the drugs don't need to run as rampant. The drugs were not rampant in southern Alberta, at least not the way they were once the safe consumption site opened. But once that happened, Mike, everything changed. We saw lots and lots of people from all over Canada start showing up in Lethbridge. Why? Because it had a safe consumption site. It had a steady flow of drugs. It had a steady flow of cops not doing their jobs by arresting the drug dealers. They allowed it. They kept it going. Fentanyl, meth, heroin, all of it, cocaine. And it was open season. And kids that I used to coach, at hockey, those kids are the kids that were being targeted. And I couldn't have that. I couldn't stand for that. I couldn't allow that to continue on anymore. And a bunch of good people in Lethbridge asked for some help, and we all kind of banded together to create something that was going to take it down. And that's exactly what happened. Mayor was involved. Province was involved. There was lots of corruption. And that corruption, as you know, in politics and in government officials and city officials can get the best of some people. And I'm not saying that everybody's corrupt. I still think there's good people there. But unfortunately, some things were done that makes you question everybody who works there now. And you've got to ask a lot of more questions. And you've got to kind of, I guess, stand your ground when it comes to saying, no, I'm not today. This will not happen on my watch today. Because if you allow it, it's going to decimate this city and the downtown core even farther. And if you think it's bad now, it gets way worse when they're standing there and they're all acting like zombies. And once they come out of their zombie state, all they want is to find more money and more drugs. I hope that helps, Mike.
And that's what people don't understand. People are wondering why the crime rate is so high in Winnipeg and in Manitoba. It's because when you have an addiction, you'll do anything to feed that addiction. And that means you'll hurt people, you'll break into homes, you'll break into cars, you'll steal, you'll do whatever it takes to get money to feed your addiction. And there's nothing safe about safe consumption sites. No. I disagree with them. I don't want them in our city. I think Wab Canoe is wrong for allowing them in our city. And Brad, you're right. We're just seeing the beginning of a bad thing happen in Winnipeg. If you think you're seeing a zombie state now, wait till this safe consumption site opens. And
I want to ask people one question, one thing. I want you to think about this. What if it's your kid? What if it's your kid?
Well, if it was my kid, Brad, the one thing that I would want for my son.
I wasn't asking you the question. I was asking our viewers, buddy. Our viewers are the ones who I want them to put that in their head. If that's my kid, would I want my kid going there? if their friends said, let's go to the safe consumption site tonight for something to do, because they're going to allow 16 and 17-year-olds in there to do these drugs. How are people supposed to react? What happens when it's your kid, folks?
Yeah, and that's the problem. What happens if it is your kid? And you know, I've thought about that a lot, and I'm going to answer that question, because if it was my kid, I definitely wouldn't want a place where he could go do drugs safely and give him Narcan when he's dying. What I want is for him to get into a place that's going to help him, that's going to heal him, that's going to give him a place to get his life back.
Mike,
And
I sold my
that's
house in
treatment, that's
Lethbridge.
recovery.
I sold my house in Lethbridge to move to Winnipeg because of the safe consumption site in Lethbridge, Alberta. All right, that's why we left. That was part of the reason, a big part of
And
it.
then did you leave Winnipeg again to go back to Alberta because the safe consumption site's here now?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm living in the belly of the beast out here, and Brookfield is what I call it now instead of Okotoks. And I am in Okotoks, but I like to call it Brookfield. Brookfield Asset Management has their hands in a lot of different developments within this city and as well as Calgary. And I'm going to be exposing and talking about some of that as I move forward with Wake Up Canada News. So thank you for allowing me to get that pitch in. There's a lot to talk about. 50-kilometer speed limits, calming curbs, scooters everywhere, bike paths everywhere, and trails to go out and get your exercise, because you're going to have to stay within your 15-minute area to get that exercise real soon, folks. Pay attention to what's going on around you, because if you're not hearing that, you're missing out.
Lots going on, lots to talk about. Tell your friends about this show. As it gets closer to election time, maybe in August and September, we're going to really turn up the heat. And people are probably saying, hey, how come you're not releasing your full platform? How come you're not trust me, I have a platform that's on fire, but the more that I release, the more people copy. We don't know who else is going to jump in the race, and that's exactly what they're waiting for. Sit back, listen to Mike Vogiatzakis' ideas, what's his plans, and just take those plans and add them to your plans and look like the superhero. We want change for the city. We want a better Winnipeg. The reason I work so hard and I'm trying to step outside my box and make change is because of your kids, your grandkids, and their future. And if we don't stand up together, if we don't show love, kindness, and compassion, there is no future for our kids in Winnipeg. So we thank you for tuning in to another Mike Vogiatzakis for Mayor show. Do us a favor, please like, share, and follow us. And join us again next week. Don't forget, on July 14th, you're going to see Facebook messages on where the meet and greet's going to be. You're going to be able to get signs now. You'll be able to get buttons. We also have something really cool. And bumper stickers. Haven't seen bumper stickers in years, have you, Brad?
No, I haven't.
Send you one out there to put on your car or your bike or whatever you're driving on, maybe a scooter. But things are gonna heat up, and we want you to be aboard. I want to thank everyone for following me and joining me. Tell 10 people about me. And this is how we grow. This is how we change. And this is how you may change. If we don't, an incumbent mayor is hard to beat. There hasn't been an incumbent mayor beaten in Winnipeg for many, many years. We want to go down in history and change that and beat an incumbent mayor and bring Winnipeg back to life. Take care of yourselves.
I feel the energy and I feel it coming, Mike. Take care. What?
Take care of yourselves and each other. God bless you and your families. Brad, thank you again for joining in, and another great night. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everybody.